Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
All
Hello.
right. We are slowly admitting everyone to the room, and we'll start in just a minute here. Thank you so much for coming to this info session. Really appreciate it. This is the third week we've done it. Or is
I
it,
heard fourth.
or is it fourth? Yeah, lost count too. Anyways, what's important is this is the last info session. Well, we're having one in the evening as well at 6 PST, but the last day of info sessions before our application deadline, or rather our early phase application deadline, which many of you probably know is November 30th. So coming up in just over a week, but since next week are holidays, at least here in the States, we're not going to have info sessions then, but of course, you can always reach us with your questions via email. And so today I'll introduce myself, and then I will be, all of our staff here will introduce themselves, and then I will be handing it off to Zane for the presentation, and he'll explain everything there. And Gwen, thank you. Just sent out the email for everyone to ask questions if we don't get to your questions, since we do have a lot of people today. And so I'm Matt, program director of Come On Out Japan, and I've been doing this program since 2015 when it first started. And my one quick thing I always say, and Zane will say this a million times in the presentation, and Gwen will say it, is that when I first did this program, and I'm a teacher, last year taught world history in junior high school in Los Angeles. When I taught last year in history, I had 200 students over the course of a full year. And at the end of the year, I questioned, how much of an impact did I have on these kids? Will they remember me in years' time as they're getting to high school, college, and whatnot? What was my impact over the course of the year? In Global English Camp, it's a 5-day program with your students. You do it throughout the summer with different students every week. But at the end of the 5th day, it was tangible. It was totally realized how much of an impact I had on my students. And it was so fulfilling to see that and see students transform over 5 days. And there was no questions from me. I knew that I would impact them. And I still keep in touch with students from 2015. So it truly is a rewarding experience and all about impacting these Japanese students. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Zane, who will I'll hand it off to Gwen to introduce herself, then Zane, and
Yes.
Zane will explain everything. So nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming.
Hi, guys. My name's Gwen, and in contrast, I actually have no teaching experience, or I didn't before this program, but I was a mentor in the program in 2019, and it honestly changed my life. It was so amazing seeing the impact on the students. Everything Matt said is just so true in almost every case, and I loved it so much that I'm back here as the Director of Design and Technology. So I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to email us or throw them in the chat box. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you both. So I guess it's my turn now. So hi everyone, I'm Zane. As you can probably tell, I'm from London, and it is 6 p.m. here, so lights out. I was an intern on the program in 2018, and then I returned in 2019 as a leader. And I've continued to work with Come On Out since then. So this is why I'm here, because I really love this program so much. And I really am hoping that lots of you apply to this. So I'm just going to share my screen now. So can you see the presentation? All good, great. So I guess we'll get started. So yes, thank you for coming to this info session for the 2021 Summer Internship Program, Global English Camp. We would usually have these sessions in person, but of course, with the current situation, we can't do that. So thank you for coming to this Zoom session instead. First things first, you should definitely sign up to the newsletter. Gwen has already put that into the chat. It is the best way to keep up to date with all of the information that you need. So we'll also tell you about seminars that might be happening, any blog posts from past interns, any offers on TEFL certificates, and any COVID updates that happen as well. And we don't spam you, we promise, only 2 emails every month. And of course, we won't share your information out as well. And this session is being recorded, I think, and will be uploaded as well. If you wanted to go over again, oh, I don't remember that question, what did he say? And of course, you can also put your questions in throughout the session. And if we don't get time for it, then you can, of course, email us later as well. So before we kind of get into the real part of the program, I want to talk about COVID situation, of course, because that's what's going on and that will affect things heavily. We are regularly checking for updates on the situation with our co-partners in Japan. And we will generally be following the Tokyo Olympics protocols. So if the Olympics will run, more likely we will also be running as well. If the Olympics have decided that it's not safe enough to run, then we will probably also decide that it is not safe to run. If the program is not held this coming summer, then we will not be holding a remote version. So this is something that other people have been asking. Currently, we do not have the infrastructure. So if it is not held in 2020, we will just have to hold another one in 2021. I think I got that year wrong. If it is not held in 2021 summer, then it will be held in the next year after. Successful applicants may defer their internship anytime before plane tickets are booked. So if at any point before you book your flights, you decide that you no longer wish to do the program this coming summer, you may defer it to the year after that. And that can be if you don't feel safe regarding COVID, if you have some other internship that's come up, or some other family thing has happened, that's fine. If you've already been accepted, you can defer to the next year. And of course, sign up to the newsletter. It's really helpful, it's really handy. So now on to the main info session. This is just an outline of what we'll be talking about today. So an introduction and an overview of the camp itself, who we are as Common Out Japan, as well as the partners that we work with, the application process, so kind of going chronologically, what will you do? You'll apply first and how that's going to work. Then hopefully orientation and training when you arrive to Japan. We'll then have a break for Q&A. So any questions that have come up to that point, we'll be going through as well. After that, we'll be talking about the camp itself. So what actually happens during the 5 weeks that you'll be there. Any other logistics and subsidies. So, the money, the flights, all of these sorts of things. So if you have any questions regarding those sorts of things, wait until we get to that in the slide, because probably your questions will be answered by us by then. We'll then have another Q&A break after that. And then final parts, outside of the classroom, and then we'll open the floor to everybody for questions. So let's begin. We have a lovely Global English Camp promo video, which is on the main website, which Gwen is going to put into the chat in a few seconds. We don't have the time for that right now, but feel free to view that at your own leisure. There it is. Thank you, Gwen. So now let me give you an overview of the camp. And the info is also on the website. So it's a 5-week unpaid internship in Japan. It says roughly 5 weeks. It's more if you are a returning intern. It's aimed at university students, recent graduates, and PhD students. So if you are in or have recently been to university, then this is aimed at you. And there's no preference over that age as well. We want a broad variety of ages of applicants. And it's to provide an opportunity for Japanese students to practice their English speaking skills, to grow their confidence, and to discover their life missions. Those are kind of the 3 main things that we do on this camp. So helping Japanese students to speak English, building their confidence, and helping them to discover their life mission. Each week, interns, so you, will facilitate themed discussion sessions in a classroom setting with about 2 to 6 Japanese students. Mostly will be high school students, but you may also get middle school students, or you may also get university students if you are already graduated or if you're returning intern. And this will typically be in a classroom from 15 to 100 people. We've got a lot of different venues, and so a lot of different experiences that we can have. And each week you'll have a different group of Japanese students. So each week is the same kind of thing with a different group of people. The program also offers optional activities throughout the program, both after class and on the weekends. And although this is an unpaid internship, the sponsor provides certain expenses for each intern who participate. And this is typically how we've done things over the previous years. Of course, with the current situation, especially with budget and COVID and so on, there will be slight differences this coming year. The exact dates for the 2021 program are yet to be decided, but based off of previous year, the tentative dates are 10th of July to 20th of August and 17th of July to 27th of August. Hopefully you can see that last date slightly at the end of the page. Now, because we did previous years, in particular last year, we've had a big cohort of interns. We've split the group into two, Group A and Group B. Group A, which starts and ends 1 week earlier than Group B. And this is helpful for any people who have to leave a little bit early and won't be able to make, say, the 27th of August. Maybe your university starts early or your job starts early, or maybe you are not available until the 16th of July. Maybe you have another internship which is just finishing, or maybe you've got this extra essay that you need to work on until the middle of July. This just allows a bit of flexibility. Again, these are tentative dates. It might even be that we only have one large cohort. So unfortunately, things are still quite uncertain, but this is roughly the time that you should expect. Mid-July to mid to late August. These are some of the numbers that we've had from the 2019 program. So we had 178 interns, 27 returning interns. We worked with 25 universities across the US, the UK, Canada, and outside as well. And we worked with 57 different venues in Japan. So quite a big program. A little bit about us and who we are. So the three of us, myself, Gwen, and Matt, we work with Common Out Japan. This is the program administrator. So we work with the applications, the first stage of interviews, the onboarding process, organizing the program retreats, sorting out some activities. We're also your main ground support, your first kind of port of call. And we're also your primary intern contact in Japan and the US. One of our major companies that we work with is Nagase Brothers, or Toshin, and they are the program sponsor. So this is a company which is based in Japan, and they own a variety of what's called cram schools in Japan, which is just kind of for extra tutoring and extra classes for Japanese students. They organize the second round of interviews, and they oversee the daily classes. So they'll always be with you in the classes. They organize the curriculum, so you do not need to make up the curriculum yourself. And they also organize and recruit the Japanese high schools and the students that take part of the program. As I mentioned, Nagase Brothers brings over 40 years of educational background in Japan. So if you go to anyone in Japan and you mention Toshin or Nagase Brothers, chances are they've probably heard about them. One of the other main companies that we work with is Common Up, who is another program sponsor. They organize a lot of the pastoral side. So housing for you guys, transportation, language classes, more activities, and more grant support. So emergency contexts and reimbursement as well. So these are the kind of the three big companies that work in partnership to help organize the English camp. This is the application phase. So the early phase will end very soon. So at the end of November. So this is the early phase. And what we do is we take that pile of applicants and we run through them all. And this is when we kind of start looking at who we want to move on to the next stage of interviews and who we're considering to accept. And the applications are accepted on a rolling basis. So if you have just missed out on the early phase, then you'll have to wait until we go through all of the early phase candidates before we get to see your application. It doesn't matter so much where you are in the early phase, but as long as your application is sent in before the end of the 30th of November, then you'll be pretty good. So, if in doubt, just apply right now. And I'll probably say that a few times, just apply as soon as you can. Don't worry about the 30th of November, just do it like right now, right when the session ends. After that, we have the regular phase, which is where about 25% or so of our interns have come from in previous years. And then after that, there'll typically also be a waiting list. So we have quite a bit of flexibility with regards to accepting and deferring the internship. And so, if you're on the waiting list, don't get your hopes too down. There's a possibility that you might come onto the program. And here are just some frequently asked questions that we typically have. So you do not need to be a native English speaker. We only require that you be native level. So if you are local to Spain or France or anything like that, that's fine, as long as your English level is at native level. No Japanese language experience is required. I'd say maybe like 3/4 of the interns that we've had in previous years do not speak a word of Japanese, and that's fine. The program does not expect you or require you to know any Japanese. No formal teaching experience is required, though having some teaching experience and some background teaching will make your application stronger. No TEFL certificate is required either. Again, though, this might make your application stronger. Example, I did not have a TEFL certificate when I applied, but of course I was still accepted onto the program. You also do not need to have visited Japan before. That's fine. As long as you have had some experience of traveling, then we'll feel a bit more confident about your application. And so if all of these things are not required, what is required? We're looking for applicants who are really patient. It is a very tough program. And as you can tell at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty, especially with the COVID situation. And so we ask for patience in waiting for things to happen, things might change. Flexibility, it might be the case that last minute we need some more interns in Niigata. And so we ask for the interns in Tokyo, perhaps, and said, does anyone want to go to Niigata, next day? We're looking for people who are willing to say, yeah, you know what, I'm happy to change last minute and go off to Niigata. And we're of course looking for applicants with a lot of maturity. So to be able to work in this quite high intense environment, lots of different people, lots of different personalities. It's a very stressful situation as well, having to work quite intensely, getting on those packed Japanese trains in the mornings at rush hour, working with lots of different people. Maybe your students is just not gelling with you that one week, but having the maturity, the patience, and the flexibility to keep working through with a big old smile on your face and give your 100% for the Japanese students. And of course, we're looking for lots of passion. We want people who are interested in making connections with these students and making a big impact on these students. Of course, if you're interested in Japan, that's fantastic. This is a program in Japan, but really we want interns who are looking to impart onto these students. Previous years is orientations and training. So this is based off of what's happened in previous years. Of course, this year, things might be different because of the COVID situation. So what we've usually done is that you come in on the first weekend and have your orientation. The first weekend would be the check-in and the welcome party. And it's a nice, good weekend to relax and kind of get rid of your jet lag, hopefully. After that, you would be doing the training for 5 days. And the training is organized by the returning interns. So these are people who have been in the classroom, have been in the same situation, which you would about to be in, and then trying to share as much of our experience with you as possible so that you understand and you feel as prepared as possible for going into that first week. Of course, the exact specifics, such as where this might be held, so like in a hostel or in the locations, these are yet to be decided. But previously, we've had the first weekend in a big shared hostel with everybody, and then quickly we get moved into our housing. We do all of our training together for 1 week, and then we have a retreat at the end of the training week. Again, this might not happen in this year because of the COVID situation, but then that first week you're in the classrooms with your Japanese students working through the textbook. Speaking of, I should mention that the textbook is not something that you have to come up with. So the curriculum has been built for you, but there's lots of flexibility. Thank you, Matt. I always forget my book, but we have an example of the textbook, and we'll be going through the curriculum as well a bit later in this info session. So another quick general FAQ, just for other questions that are commonly asked but haven't been come up through the slides yet. So can you request to be in the same team or live with another intern? Unfortunately, logistically, this is quite difficult for us, especially if, say, one intern wants to stay in Tokyo for the whole time, and another intern really wants to travel. It's really difficult to organize having people be in the same team and be in the same living situation. Of course, it's something that we can always always put it in the application, and if we're able to, then we'll try to accommodate you as much as possible. If you have any dietary requirements, so maybe you're vegan, vegetarian, you have allergies, you eat halal or you eat kosher, that's perfectly fine. I myself, I eat halal, right? I'm Muslim. And, I've come up with amazing resources, or I found resources online, apps that help me to find halal food in Japan. I know one year we had a girl who was very strictly Jewish, so she really stuck with eating kosher. And with allergies and vegan and vegetarianism, we built up some documents about where to go, where to find vegan and vegetarian food, how to ask for things like, does this have sesame oil, for instance, and try to help you as much as possible with these things. So hopefully that's not something that you have to worry about. Do applications from previous years affect your odds? So we did not run the program this previous summer, again, due to the COVID situation. And so a lot of these applicants have also deferred their entry into this coming session. So yes, this will affect your odds. And again, if we do not have the session, if we do not have the English camp coming this summer, then applications will continue to move forward as well. So just be careful, just be aware of that these odds are affected. If you really want to do a homestay, then your best way to do that is to select the option in the application which says that I want to travel as much as possible. If you choose to stay in the Kanto area, where Tokyo is, or in the Kansai area, which is where Kyoto and Osaka are, you're unlikely to get a homestay because of it's just very difficult to find homestays in Tokyo and in the big cities. But if you are moving around to lots of more remote locations, you're more likely to find homestays there. And we can talk more about the homestay experience later on as well. Does my GPA matter a lot? I'm a Brit, so I don't actually know what a GPA is. But the basic idea of asking for the GPA is just to make sure that you have a good standing with your university. We don't want any concerns with students who are really struggling with the university and then also trying to force themselves to take an internship as well. What about visas? For people from the US, Canada, and the UK, I can definitely say that because this is an unpaid internship, you will arrive with a tourist visa and you will receive that on entry for 90 days. The program itself is not 90 days, which allows you some time to arrive early and to return late as well. If you're outside of these countries, and I can't immediately say what the situation is, but we work very closely with you to make sure that these things are organized and sorted beforehand. So if you have a Chinese passport, I don't know what the situation is, but we'll find out for you. That's something that you shouldn't need to worry about. What is the character references? So this is just like a statement from, say, your supervisor or your tutor, just to make sure that everything is good with your university as well. Well, it doesn't have to be university-based either. It's just, a reference that we ask for. Okay, so now I've talked for quite a bit. I'd like to open up for questions. Know that still to come, I'm going to be talking about the camp, logistics and subsidies, outside of the classroom, and so on. So if you have any questions regarding these, just hold off for a second. Let me talk about them first, and then you can ask your question. So Gwen and Matt, I see lots of messages in the chat. Lay them on me.
Yeah, it's a battle of who's got the fastest hands in the West to respond to these between me and Gwen. Or I should say I'm in the West, she's in the East Coast. But I think we've been covering them all. To bring up one recently, Eve asked, is it okay to get in as can I get in as a freshman? And Eve also asked about GPA right when Zane was answering it live, which was awesome. I haven't had that happen before. But Eve and anyone else, as Zane mentioned with what we're looking for in an applicant, it's also the same in diverse experiences of our applicants, not just looking for Japanese majors. Like Zane said, most people haven't been to Japan or speak Japanese at all. We're not just looking for future teachers. Of course, that's helpful if you have a certificate, if you have teaching experience. But in the application, if you don't, just talk about your passion, like Zane said, your passion for impacting others, because that's most important. And Zane's a math major. I studied film. Gwen studied history. we've got a wide variety of interns every year, and we think that's beneficial for the students to get different perspectives on the world. And a lot of students want to study different things. You know, one of my students might not be interested in film, but interested in math. And then they see Zane give a presentation on math and say, I'm going to go talk to Zane. So we want this wide variety of experiences, perspectives, passions, majors, interests. That's important to us. So it is kind of a cliche and a little bit of vague of we want a wide variety, but that's truly how it is. And that goes for where you're from too, and your background. We want from all over, not just the US, of course, not just the UK, as much as Zane would love to have everyone from London. And, and we battle within Los Angeles versus London all the time. No, we want all over Canada, Europe, anywhere. And so as long as you have the native English level, then you're good. So I just wanted to answer that one. Gwen, was there anything else you saw that was?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on here. There was one further up about how we determine what is native level. And if you guys want to speak on that.
Yeah, it sounds informal, but it is during the application process when we're reading your application. Is that all good? And then in the interview, because quite frankly, the interview, it's about 30 minutes, and we ask a variety of questions, from asking about what you put on your application to scenarios that might happen in the classroom and how you would react. But it's also a conversation between maybe myself or Zane and Gwen and you when we're interviewing you. That in itself is a test of your native English level and your ability to, quite frankly, facilitate a conversation. Because like Zane said, not as much teaching, it's mentorship, it's engaging in conversation with the students. So that's where we determine that. People ask, can I put my scores that determine this? Sure, put it on your application. But you don't have to. We'll determine that in the interview.
And you kind of covered this, but in terms of making applications stand out, Matt brought this up about your life mission and what you want to do in life. I would really just say be yourself and go into everything you're passionate about in detail. And if you can inspire us, then that's awesome. We love to see that, because if you can inspire us, you can inspire future students. There's questions about reference letters too, like who can people ask? Do you still need one if you're a first year undergrad? I think if you get one from someone you've worked with in an academic or professional capacity, that's probably the best, but in the end, it is just a character reference, and we like to see it just so we can get some confirmation from an outside source. So yeah, you should probably provide one.
Yeah, so I think like a university tutor is fine. If you worked on some kind of project at university, whoever supervised that is fine. If you had like a part-time job, then whoever was the manager at the time. There's lots of different places that you can ask for a character reference. So I wouldn't worry too much about, oh, is this person suitable or not? Probably they are.
There's a question about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay, just going down the list. Has anyone gotten in trouble for working in Japan on a tourist visa? Not in our program, because people aren't directly getting paid. You really are there as a tourist. It's an unpaid program, so that is the appropriate visa to get. So no one's gotten in trouble for that.
Yes, if for whatever reason somehow, some police come and start picking trouble for whatever reason, then of course we'd try our best to support you as much as possible. So I wouldn't stress out about that. It hasn't happened to us before, and I can't imagine that it would be a big problem either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to blast through a few questions here. How and when would we be able to travel if we are to remain at the camp? So like Zane said, you have that 90 days. Arrive early, stay later. You won't be part of the program. You'll be on your own. The program dates is when we provide housing, but we encourage that. Zane will talk about that when we get to the airplane part. Is the camp within the secure area of Tokyo susceptible to hurricanes and earthquakes? Of course, there's typhoons throughout the summer in Japan, but we have and there could be earthquakes, but we have a safety training, disaster training during the first day, and we think that's important to prepare you guys for that. Architecture in Japan is also very much built for that, which is really nice and makes us all feel really safe. Total costs, Ita, we'll get to that during our financial section, since there are going to be a ton of questions on that. Audrey, will you travel around by yourselves? Never by yourselves when you're in our program, always with at least one, well, quite frankly, at least two other interns and staff, or a leader like myself or Zane or Gwen, always within a group. And yeah, you have generally a group of 10 to 12 that you're traveling around with, going from venue to venue or staying in Tokyo. We'll talk a bit more about that too. And I think, Melody, that's fine for your reference. Of course, the reference, again, comes during the onboarding process. You can provide a reference on the application, but that's optional. It's once you're confirmed, we need the reference for character. Elena, hopefully that answered your question as well. It's not on the application's onboarding process.
Sorry if I confuse people with that. I should fix
it.
it.
No, it's no worries. I think that happens.
The onboarding process, not the application.
Yeah, but that happens every year because we kind of have a strange application in that regard where we don't require a resume or an application. We want to know about your personal experiences and your short answer questions. Yeah, Alejandro, Japan does just wobble all the time. Okay, so I think we're actually caught up on the questions. Those were the few that came in, right, Gwen?
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Okay. So I'll continue with the next section of the info session.
Wait. There was a few last minute questions. Do you want to wait on those or just go into them while we're here?
Let's wait on those. I kind of want to just continue because I think a lot of people are asking questions regarding travel and money, and really, like, we'll get to that in the logistics and subsidies. So I guess I'll just continue.
Yeah.
So now is the camp itself. So as I mentioned, the camp basically, so the first week is training, and then you have 4 weeks, and each week looks very similar to each other. You'll have a group of students, and you'll work with them from Monday through to Friday in most cases. So this is last year's sample schedule. And the idea is that each day, from day 1 to day 5, follows some kind of theme. It works 9:30 to about 5:30, so a kind of standard day. The first day is just kind of introductions, getting to know each other, warming up with the students, making sure they get to, speak, get some speaking exercises, a university fair. So this is where you get to show off about your university and what it's like, so that these Japanese students can understand what university is like outside of Japan as well. And then, a small presentation within the groups. And then a discussion. We've had discussions on the 2020 Olympics. Of course, this will change, but we also have other optional content as well for you to work on. Day 2 is Japan and the world. So again, more speaking exercises, and we start doing one of the major parts of the week, which is your major or field of study introductions, which is where you get to show to the Japanese students about what you studied at university, why you've studied it, and what your life mission is really all about. And this gets them to think about their interests, what they're looking for in their future, and what they kind of want to do with their own future. We then continue discussions on a particular topic, and we also do a nice presentation as well. So a group presentation to the rest of the classroom. And this is something that I'll show you a few pictures of later as well. Day 3 is similar to day 2. We kind of start off the morning with more major presentations. So students from different groups in particular will get a chance to see your presentations as well. And then more discussions, mostly relating to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is a collection of about 17 goals that United Nations have come together and decided on. This is what we really want to work on in the future for the world. And trust me, by the end of week 5, you will be able to spit them off the top of your head, because we'll go through them quite rigorously throughout the different weeks. Day 4, again, majors field of study introduction, so more presentations to other students in the classroom, discussing the development goals again, with a nice presentation, again, from your group to the rest of the class. But then day 5, completely different to all the other days, is really focusing on the life missions that the students have. So all throughout the week, the students have been thinking about what they want to do in the future, what they want to study, what they want to do as a job, anything along those lines. And so the whole day is really practicing and preparing for a short, minute-long speech or a few minutes-long speech that they give in full English to the rest of the classroom in front of everyone. And then, that's the kind of big climax of the week, and then we cool down with the closing ceremony. So here are a few pictures from the events, because, who doesn't like a good picture? So we have lots of speaking exercises and games. So this is not a teaching program. This is a mentorship program. This is not you sitting in front of a chalkboard saying, this is grammar, this is vocabulary. This is an opportunity for students to get up, be active, get involved, talk, speak, move around, and so on. As I mentioned, we had the 2020 Olympics discussions. So students get to work on their presentation, which is a nice big old poster, make it nice and colorful. Everyone gets a chance to speak, stand in front of the whole classroom. And it's a bit daunting for them at first. Of course, they're not used to speaking in front of everyone, but being together as a group with you there to support them, they build up their confidence. As I've mentioned, we have other options which we'll utilize more in this coming year. So one example we've had is the entrepreneurship discussion. So one group on the left here made a microwave bento box named Mike, which is just a cute little thing for them to come up with together. They've come up with different sizes, small, medium, large, and how expensive that might be. Or also the domination switch, which turns off your annoying siblings. So lots of different fun activities and exercises for the students to get involved with. And of course, these are supplemented in the textbook. So you don't have to come up with these ideas all by yourself. You'll have a lot of support with this. World issues, as I've mentioned, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is a big part. So you get to see these students talk about ideas of gender, energy, education, poverty. They really get to think about the wider world as a whole. And it's really quite amazing seeing all the different ideas and thoughts that these students have. They're very capable students. And it's really great to see them come up with different ideas, different solutions, talk it out, change opinions, all these sorts of things. And the final day speech, the life mission. It's a fun exercise. You can see the grins, the excitement, the energy of, one student standing up in front of everyone confidently and talking about what they want to do. And this is quite a nice way for students to really express themselves. So one of my students I had back in 2018, this is in the third week, she really wanted to be a doctor, but she also really loved music. That was a big passion of hers. And so she, in her life mission speech, came up with an acoustic guitar and sang a song in front of everybody. And then she spoke about her life mission passion of becoming a doctor. So it's really amazing to see how different students come up with different ways to express themselves. And as I mentioned, we have this closing ceremony, which is just a nice way for you to give a message to the whole class. And hopefully you also get a nice little message from the class back to you as well. So, and also this is the only time where you are allowed to speak any Japanese if you can speak Japanese. So throughout the whole week, it's only English because the students really need to get into the habit of not relying on their Japanese as a crutch. And this is a time where if you know some Japanese, you can really show off and surprise them. And if you don't know any Japanese, this is a really nice time for them to see you struggling with language as well. So it's, whether you speak Japanese or not, this is a really lovely opportunity. So now the logistics and the subsidies. So this was included last year, and I'll preface this by saying that this year there is a lot of uncertainty, in particular with the COVID situation. Everything is kind of up in the air a bit. So the exact figures and the exact numbers are still to be decided. So we have in previous years covered the round trip airfare, but with some limitations and procedures. So if you're flying from your home airport or one that's close to your university to Japan and back, maybe with some layovers or stopovers, then we would cover some amount of that, a large amount, almost all usually, unless you're going for like a really expensive, really late direct flight. In previous years, we've also asked you to pay a $500 deposit at the time of purchase. And this is the only thing that you would have to pay, except for if the cost of your flight is slightly over the budget that we've provided for you. We take $100 of that as an onboarding fee, and that helps to cover pre-training, vetting, background checks, and so on. And then usually it was about 45 days after the program ends, you would receive $400 of that back, provided that you haven't like wrecked your apartment or things like that. The exact numbers, as I've mentioned, are still to be decided. So this is something that we're still a little bit up in the air. If you are interested in visiting other places first, so maybe you want to go from your hometown in Chicago and then go to China and then go to Japan, typically our budget for your flight is slightly less. This is because our partners in Japan really want to encourage you to come to Japan and travel there rather than visiting other countries as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. Housing for the duration of the program is also included. Typically, this will usually be a shared house. So this is kind of like the US dormitories or UK dormitories, where you have your own room, and then you share amenities like toilets, bathroom, kitchen, and so on. And this is the most common type of housing that you would expect. If you're traveling to smaller remote locations out around Japan, then you might also have a homestay, or you might be put into a hotel for that week. You may also stay in apartment or guest houses. And if you are specifically requesting for an individual apartment, that will require an additional fee. But that's not very common for most people. Almost everyone has just gone with the standard kind of shared housings, homestays, and hotels. Just a personal anecdote, I had a homestay when I went to up north in Hokkaido, in the east, in a place called Kushiro. There were only about 5 interns altogether, myself included. So it was a much smaller program. Usually you'll stay with the family of one of the students on the program. The idea being that that student acts as a translator between you and the family. So you won't have to worry about the English barrier in that case. In my case, I was lucky and I got to stay with the family of one of the staff members. And so, for me, that was really nice because as a leader, then it was good to organize at home as well. But it was just such a wonderful experience. Having the homestay mum cook me a bento for lunch every day. I'd come home and I'd play Smash Brothers with the kids, even though I've never played Smash Brothers before. On the last day, we went out for sushi all together, and they got me some gifts, and I also brought them some gifts from home as well. So homestays are definitely something, if you're interested in, put down that you want to travel as much as possible in the application. Weekly food subsidies are also provided. Previous years, it's been 2,300 yen per weekday. You might think, oh, is that enough? $23 a day, or about, £20 a day or whatever. Food is surprisingly actually quite affordable in Japan, especially if you go to convenience stores. You might think, oh, convenience store food, is that okay? Actually, Japanese convenience stores are really kind of top-notch. They are convenient. They have quite good, accessible, easy, convenient food, which is quite cheap. And if you want to splurge out, there's nothing stopping you. Myself and Matt, we love our food, right? We're big foodies. So I always brought in a bit of extra money because I knew I wanted to spend a bit more, And sometimes, you'll find that really cheap hidden ramen store in the corner of the alleyway that's 500 yen for a bowl. And, it's the best ramen you've ever had. So there's always lots of opportunities to explore with this as well. Transportation to and from each class and each venue, and any required additional travel would also be covered for you. And it's not the case where you have to provide receipts or anything like that. You just kind of log it in a spreadsheet, and then we provide reimbursements for you. So this would be, taking the train in the morning to your venue and then coming back. Or if we have to fly it out over to Okinawa, then, we would pay for that flight. And along those lines, Sundays is usually the travel days as well. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're traveling, it pretty much will always be on Sundays. And as we mentioned in the chat, I think this came up as a question, you will not be expected to travel on your own. You would be traveling with your team, which is usually about 10 or so people moving from venue to venues. It might be slightly less, it might be slightly more. Excuse me. But you will never be expected to travel on your own. So, we will take good care of you. Typically, we've also provided subsidies for optional field trips and some program retreats, some Japanese language classes, and some after-class activities as well. And the way we've done it in previous years is usually, say, reimbursements for, say, 2 events. And then if you wanted to go to some more, then you might have to pay a small fee for that as well. Or some types of events we won't reimburse at all. So maybe some museum exhibitions or some tea ceremonies, for instance. It really is a case-to-case basis on what the events are and our budget as well. Unfortunately, that is something that, it just is how we have to do things. We also do provide health and accident insurance, as well as counseling and support for anyone who might be struggling with mental health issues. This is something that we've incorporated over the years as we felt its importance and its use. But it's very important that you fill out your health and wellness forms later on in the onboarding process, I believe. So this is something that's important that you keep us informed, and we'll try to take care of you as best as possible. So, questions? I'm sure we've got plenty of questions in the chat, especially regarding the money and the travel.
Yeah, I'll add on to what I just typed to Sarah, which might be on a lot of people's minds on the out-of-pocket costs, and Gwen and Zane can feel free to comment on what you bring. Like Zane mentioned, we're kind of in the same camp where we want to splurge on food every now and then, even though, like some people have been joking about in the chat, the convenience stores are so great and you get so much cheap food, or Caesarea, someone mentioned these different options. It's a common misconception you spend money, but I still recommend, and as I just put, at least 200 USD or even more, just to have it, because you're going to make a last minute trip or decision to make a trip to Kyoto for the weekend because you just found out, oh, I'm in Tokyo the whole time, which is great, by the way. That 5 weeks is not enough time to explore Tokyo. But you want to go to Kyoto, which I recommend, or Nara or somewhere. You want to do a trip. So that's really where the bulk of the cost is going to be, is trips on the weekend and then your own personal transportation on the weekday. So not just to the class and back or to classes, if you're going to explore different parts of the city. So have that. And then, of course, souvenirs. Of course, you're going to see something you want to take home or buy for friends or family. So while, there are some people that brag about how they gotten by with little to nothing in our program, we don't recommend it. We recommend, if you have the means, to keep an open mind in terms of your budget. And so that's why I recommended that number.
I can
yeah.
This vegetarian question really quick, because I was vegetarian in Japan. Yeah, I mean, it certainly is harder. It depends on how strict you are about little bits of fish sauce and things. Sometimes they're not listed, but I found plenty of stuff to eat that was super delicious, super cheap, fairly healthy. Anything from egg salad sandwiches, which doesn't sound great, but they're amazing in Japan, to rice balls, to edamame. There's vegan restaurants, there's vegetarian restaurants. I knew several people who were vegan in the program and they did just fine. So you'll be totally fine.
Yes, especially since where you'll be staying, whether that's a shared house or a hotel or something, well, you probably have cooking facilities. So if in doubt, you can always go to the local supermarket, get a bunch of fresh ingredients, and then you can make your own meals, if that's what you prefer. As I mentioned, there was a girl who was strictly Jewish, strictly kosher. That's what she did for every meal. She cooked them herself, and she was perfectly fine.
And we have plenty of people in the program who can help you. Feel free to ask anyone. Like, it's an unlimited resource of people with all sorts of diets.
Yes.
And just to say again, which I think is super important, and Zane did not give himself enough credit, is we have interns, and we're going to mention this later, that are really the backbone of this program. Zane, I think it was your first year, I believe, created this halal map in Tokyo, in Shinjuku. Yeah, we still use. So, I mean, we have people adding to this all the time, which I think is great. It's more personal and adding to the experience. Margarita, speaking of food, seafood, you will survive. We've had actually quite a few people who have been allergic to seafood, and we, like Zane mentioned, we accommodate for all that, and there's plenty of other fantastic options. Jasmine, in your free time, it's your free time. You can travel wherever you want if you have the means and you make it to class. If you're doing a weekend trip to Okinawa and you're teaching in Hokkaido the next day, you got to be there for our flight we give you on Sunday. So we'll give you that schedule, so that kind of will determine where you go. Aaron, again, yeah, weekends are completely free besides if you're traveling venue to venue. So like I said, maybe you're in Tokyo one week, you go to Hokkaido, you got to take a flight on Sunday. We provide you the ticket. Hey, you got to be here with your group, and we'll help you out throughout that process. You travel together, or you're taking a bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka, a couple-hour trip. You still got to make that train on time on Sunday. Audrey, yeah, teaching is all over. Our headquarters are in Tokyo, and that's where the majority of our students are. But as Zane mentioned, there's so many different venues. Charlotte, we recommend using 500 for all of them. Sorry for the confusion there. If you feel you need a little more to fully explain, like you don't feel your answer is complete or true to yourself within 500, you go a little over it, that's fine. Don't worry too much about that. We're not strict on that. We want to give you guys the space to share your experiences and your passions. That's important to us.
I'm just going to put a little asterisk on Matt's comment, like, I'm going to put 10%.
Yeah. Don't, yeah.
10% is pretty fair, I think. So, 550 at a push. And we don't want, 3,000 word essays.
And Zane's doing his great duty to protect us because we are the ones reading it. And quite frankly, it's probably going to be us three and one more. So as you can imagine, when someone asked a question earlier about applications and we get over 1,200 last year, that's a lot to read. And we take this seriously because you can tell we're so passionate, us three. We really read these thoroughly. So thank you, Zane. Please do not, as much as we love reading it, that takes a lot of time. So.
Okay, I think that's it for now. We'll go through this final section, and I'm aware of the time, so I'll try to keep this quick, and then we can open the floor up to the general Q&As. So here are just some nice pictures of what people have done outside of the classroom. As we said, you are basically free to do whatever you want, as long as you are aware of if you're paying for it or if it's a subsidized program, and as long as you are, in the classroom when you are expected to be, and you are teaching at a level that we expect from you as well. So, try not to come in horrendously hungover, half an hour late that Monday morning, because there'll be a lot of upset, us as well as the Japanese companies. But just some examples, matsuris are very common in the summer festivals. You can go to an onsen or a hot bath, hot spring, excuse me. For those of you who have tattoos and are worried about that, we've also worked, throughout the years, getting lists of places which are tattoo friendly or other kind of alternatives. Here are some examples of the cooking classes that we've had. And this is Hakone, which was a retreat that we'd done after the training session. Again, whether this runs in the coming summer or not is still up in the air. We've had tea ceremonies, calligraphy classes, boat trips, hikes, lots of different activities, lots of different things that you can do, lots of different things you can explore. Some of these you can pay for, and some of these, hiking is free, right? Just get some pair of nice walking shoes on and go up into the mountains, as long as you're, not on private property. Another big thing that we do are language classes and exchanges. So every year we have had this language exchange at Tokyo University, and it's a great way to meet some slightly more mature and slightly more older students who just want to talk to some, non-Japanese people. And of course, you want to talk to some Japanese people as well. So it's a really great cultural exchange that we have. I should also mention at this time is that you are not allowed to have contact with the Japanese high school students that you work with outside of the program, unless it goes through a process of being accepted. So the students will have to ask their parents' permission, and then that goes through the company. And then if everything goes well, then they will get your contact information. It's safeguarding. These children are under the age of 20, which is the kind of age of majority in Japan. So it's all about safeguarding. If you're working with university students, then there's no problem. And so this is just kind of some of the pictures of some of the different venues that we've had. These are, I would say, slightly smaller venue at the top and a slightly bigger venue at the bottom, where you can go from having 50 people in a classroom to 100. And just looking at the teams that we've had over the years. So this is the 2015 team, which Matt was on, the first iteration with only, 11 people. Then the 2016 team, which has about 48 different interns. And then, we keep growing each year. In 2017, I haven't had a chance to count how many people there are, but it's looking a little bit more than 48. 2018, we really grew to, I think, was it around 150 or so? Maybe around that amount. 2019 was the first time that we had split into a group A and a group B, with about 100 or so interns in each group. And of course, 2020, we didn't run. But 2021, maybe you'll be there in that nice big picture. And of course, this is for after the program, but if you really enjoyed the program, as of course myself, Gwen and Matt have, you can also return as well. The returning interns are a really big part of organizing and running the camp. And I think that's one thing that's really helpful, is that the people who are helping you the most are the ones who have done the program themselves. They've been in your shoes. They understand the situations you're going through, and they can provide the best kind of advice. So as I'm wrapping up, just a reminder, apply, like right now. Your deadline is the 30th of November, but it doesn't hurt to send your application in as soon as possible. Everything is still fresh in your head right now. End of this meeting, just go straight in, apply. Check out the Twitter for any questions. If you have any specific questions that you want to ask myself, Gwen, or Matt, maybe you don't feel comfortable asking it in the Zoom chat, or maybe you just didn't have the time to, we'll put our emails here, and feel free to contact us there as well. So thank you for listening to this info session. There was a lot of information, and we've come up to an hour. If people are busy and have to go off, we understand. But hopefully now we can open the floor to any questions from everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Zane, very much.
I'm gonna stop sharing there, and I can see some faces now.
Yeah, so now, as Zane said, feel free to unmute and ask a question, or just type it in. Or as Zane mentioned, of course, we put our emails in there for if you'd like to do that. But we always take a few minutes here at the end to answer it. And anything at all, of course.
Hello, hello. Can I ask a question?
Of course, Alejandro.
Yes. Cool. Sorry, my everything was muted. So like I know how you mentioned how there's like no absolute requirement for educational experience, like a TFL certificate or whatever. That being said, is it like a clear ratio of how many people are like education experience or education majors versus people who aren't? Like specifically, like how does that have any effect on the actual application process? Like what is, because I'm not an education major at all. I'm a film major, and yeah.
I'd say in terms of majors, it's a very small minority. We have a very broad range of majors from all different fields: STEM related, art related, business related, essay based, literature based subjects. So regarding that, you don't have to worry about that whatsoever. In terms of like actually TEFL qualified interns, I'm not too sure. Matt, I think you probably have a bit of a better grasp.
Yeah. I mean, of course, being that the TEFL certificate is directly related to teaching ESL, which is what you guys are going to be doing throughout the summer, it does give a little boost to applications because it shows you're interested in doing that and furthering your skills in that area and caring about the students. But of course, not everyone has the means to pay for a course like that in a certificate. So it's not a huge thing. And also, as Zane talked about, we provide very thorough training throughout the first, we have a whole week of training. So that's not an issue there. It is just a matter of, that means you really want to teach. And some people want to, of course, not like Zane said, we want a wide variety, but of course a lot of people are going to be wanting to teach English and beyond, or some people do our program that want to do JET, and that requires a TEFL, things like that. So hopefully that answered Alejandro. And just to add as a fun note, film majors are really fun to come out in Japan because a lot of those students, it's not a popular major in Japan. I helped a kid get into a film school in the States through this program. So it's
nice.
just to add to the mentorship aspect that Zane's been talking about. It's so special too. You're not only teaching ESL, but you're mentoring them and helping them find their life mission, which a lot of times happens during the week. Students get a light bulb moment and say, that's actually what I want to do. I want to study film.
Yeah. And no, I've definitely been on both ends of that thing, just, not in a formal setting like this,
Yeah.
And
right, thanks for the question.
Yes.
So there's a question in the chat. From the schedule shown, it was a 9 to 5. Is this for all 5 weeks?
Yep. It is 9:30 to 5:30 is what we say. 9:30 for the morning meeting, and students start leaving at 5, but they have to fill out a final form. And sometimes venue to venue, you may get called for a short after class meeting, which is important. Maybe Zane is running a venue and he sees like, you know what? I noticed a few things that we could have done better. It's a learning process, and we want to make it as best for the students as possible. So more often than not, we'll maybe call a little powwow to help and of course answer any concerns too through the classroom. But 9:30, 5:30.
And that goes for training pretty much too.
Training as well. Yep. In the past, we have left for a trip on the Friday of training. So technically the Friday of training doesn't exist. Just to get there at 9:30, and we get you your tickets, and we go out to Hakone near Mount Fuji. But that, like Zane said, that's yet to be determined for this next year.
We have another question. Are you assigned to only one location for teaching, or can you go to different camps? So I believe in the application, there's a section if you want to be based in Kanto, Kansai, or feel free to travel. If you pick Kanto, you'll be in Tokyo for most of the weeks. You might be sent to other venues near Tokyo. So, if you're familiar with the geography, I'm blanking now, Saitama, Yokohama, Chiba, and so on. And if you're based in Kansai, you'll probably be kind of in Osaka or Kyoto or anywhere near those. And you might, again, go to a slightly different venue, maybe on week 2 or week 4 or anything like that. And but if you choose to travel as much as possible, you might just be dotting around all over the place. So I hope that answers the question.
Just to clarify, that's in the onboarding process that you'll talk about the locations you want. So don't worry about it in application.
Right. Sorry, I haven't seen the application process in a very long time. That's my excuse. It's been 3 years for me.
Totally fair.
Well, and sometimes people put it in their application, but it's, yeah, we all do that during the onboarding.
Yeah, don't worry too much about it. Do I need a Japanese SIM card to communicate with other interns in general in Japan? Would love to have, or would we have access to Wi-Fi? So some people get Japanese SIM cards. I've noticed that most people get pocket Wi-Fis. They're like little devices about this big you carry around, and if you have an iPhone, you can text over iMessage. You don't need to like get a new SIM card or anything. And I found it worked way better than any of my phone data if I was on roaming. You can use it on your laptop if Wi-Fi cuts out at any point, but most accommodations will have Wi-Fi, but not all of them, but most.
Yeah. Here's a good question. Feel free to travel. Is that a fair allocation, or will we get stuck in remote places? So as Zane was kind of alluding to, we have these home bases: Tokyo, Osaka, Yokohama, and Nagoya, and those are the only ones that have the program throughout all 4 weeks of teaching. So Tokyo, if you're into, some interns are in Tokyo the entire time for 4 weeks. If you indicated that as a major preference, or maybe you feel more comfortable being in a city that's more international, not as rural. So remote places wise, like Zane said, if you want homestay, you should request to be able to travel and be in remote places, but you'll only be in that venue for 1 week. So being stuck, no, it would be a 1 week thing, and then you'd go back to the home base or to another city. And I think those experiences are fantastic in the remote at smaller venues. Oftentimes the staff really want to show you around there because it's a much smaller group, whereas in Tokyo at times we have like 125 maximum interns in a big building. So it's a really intimate experience. What else do we got? Tatum, it depends on your location for transportation. It could be as long as an hour or just over an hour door to door, because and that's a typical experience for students, for graduates, for workers. That's just how it is. We often have students that are traveling like 2.5 hours to our classroom. That will not be the case for you, but it could be up to an hour. It could be as close as 15 minutes.
Yeah, as someone who lives in London, like an hour's travel on the train is pretty standard if you're living in a big city. So if you are some American who lives on campus or whatever, get over it, because welcome to the rest of the world.
Hey, in Los Angeles, if anyone's from there, we know public transportation, right? We got nothing. We can't even get anywhere with that unless we have a car. Amy, I'll actually look into the Konbini 2-week 4G passes. I didn't know that. Maybe that's something to add to the onboarding package. Thanks for that. Kelly, since you're late, I'll just say it. The character reference is during onboarding. So yeah, further stages, not application. Esme asked a question that Zane and I and Gwen too could probably talk about for another hour about where do we eat every day. Because we try as much as possible. There's by canteen, I mean, there's inevitably popular spots that pop up with interns that become meeting places after work or during lunch. we also encourage people to bring bento boxes for lunch to eat with the students at least one day a week, just to, for that camaraderie. And then if you're in a homestay, your homestay family will probably pack you a bento box.
I've worked at venues that don't let us, they want us to eat lunch in the school, so we have to pack lunch ahead of time. So usually you'd get something from like a combini, like in the morning, you'd bring it with you, and then you'd have it ready to eat later.
Yeah, so just to kind of along the same lines, in bigger venues, there's probably lots of places nearby to get lunch. In smaller venues, you're probably a bit harder pressed to find a nearby convenience store, or the venue might really encourage you to be with your students.
Yeah, really good point from both of you. It again, that emphasizes the variance from venue to venue.
Another question in the chat: is cash pretty common, or would a UK bank account work? So Japan is a cash-based society. Even in Tokyo, where you might expect some more technology, most transactions are based in cold hard cash, coins and notes. So we recommend you. It's actually pretty convenient to transfer from dollars or from pounds into yen as well. Almost all convenience stores will have an ATM which will accept an international card for you to take out money, and the conversion rates are pretty reasonable. So if you're worried about bringing in lots and lots of money on the flight there, or taking out lots of money in the first week, you can take out a little bit of money every few weeks instead. But it is cash based, so you'll have to rely pretty heavily on money.
There are cards you can get too that don't charge as much fees at ATMs, like Capital One. We can talk about that in the onboarding process. But yeah, there's ATMs everywhere, so you don't have to bring all of your money ahead of time unless you feel comfortable doing that.
All right. Well, we'll stop it in 5 minutes maximum. So any last questions, feel free to get them in. Thanks for all the kind words, by the way. I've seen all the messages of people leaving and saying thank you. Appreciate it.
For anyone leaving soon, here's my email again.
Yeah, put the email out there.
Ask questions.
Thank you, Sam, Tilly, Alexis, Magdalene, Maritza, Shana, Jasmine, Patty, Joe, Norman. I thought that, try it out. Tatum with a big question at the end of examples of students' life missions and some ways interns can help support them. And we go over this in training, and this is a huge aspect of it, the mentorship. Helping them find, what are their passions? What are they good at? What are their vocations? How can they combine all these things into one to find their life mission? And of course, when I was in high school, I had no idea what that was. So students might not find exactly what it is, but you can help them get on the right path. Yeah, an example, student's life mission can be as specific as I, want to find a cure for a specific type of cancer because it's affected me. That's something common within medical field. Or one student, his life mission at the start of the week, my student, was to help businesses grow and expand through his knowledge of international economics and trade. By the end of it, he was ready to start school over, which he did, to become a teacher to help students find their own life missions. Kind of a meta situation going on, but that happens. Students change their mind after talking with you because they hadn't have a lot of time to think about it. I don't know if you guys want to add anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember my very first week in 2018. I had 3 students. One of them wanted to be the director of the museum. One of them wanted to be a manga artist, and the other one who wanted to work in history and literature. So you get quite a broad range. I've also mentioned before the girl who wanted to be a doctor but was also interested in music. I've had students who want to be an air hostess, who wanted to be a baker. Some even like less vocational related. One just wanted to make lots of like encounters with different people. You just wanted to meet as many people as you could. So you get a lot of different types of life missions.
It's really fun to watch the presentations and what people come up with. Yeah, there's everything from jobs to, I saw a presentation of a student who his life mission was to make a lot of money, but to do it by helping other people. So that was really fun to see how he put that all together. Yeah, it's a huge variety, and it's really cool to watch the progression.
Another question from the chat. If you're not sure about your own life mission, that's fine. You know, we don't expect you to have a set goal as well. But it's nice to have at least some ideas about what you want to do and kind of why. In particular, about, you know, why you chose the major that you've decided on. So it's just kind of a way for you to express your thoughts on your future. You know, the more concrete, the better, because then the students have an example for them to see. But, you know, if you're not sure at all, that's fine as well. You know, that's something that we will also be helping you to work on as well.
Hey, Zane, can I call you out to ask this question? Leah asked from Los Angeles, by the way. Nice. Nice. We're on the West Coast. Helping people is the key to making your app stand out. But what else was there? Can you go over your 4 main things that we love to see in any which way?
The 4 things, the 4 key things. So yes, patience, flexibility, maturity, and passion. Those are the key things that we really want to be seeing in your applications. Yeah. So try to demonstrate as many of those as you can.
Exactly. Whether that's your intentions on how those relate to your why you want to do this camp, your motivations for applying to this camp, or how you've utilized those in the past. And that doesn't have to be through teaching. It can be through, maybe Kelly might be familiar with this, what she just said. It might be with helping your sibling and the patience you experienced doing that. Or the flexibility of moving as a child. Like, personal experiences are fine, doesn't have to be related exactly to the ways those integrate into the camp, but we do like to hear about how those relate to your intentions. All right. Oh. Maculi, how many interviews? There are 2, one with us. So one of us 3 or another guy, Brian, who's not here. So you recognize our faces now and might see us soon. And then with our team in Japan. And they're both, like we said, 30 minutes. We ask a variety of questions, different questions. And of course, in Japan, it's all in English. And after the second one, then we make our final decision. But of course, as Zane said, throughout, everything might be a bit delayed, and we appreciate your patience and understanding on that. No worries, no worries. No worries on sneaking in. It is a good question. All right, yeah, we'll put our emails and things in. I think
just one last time, I think, in case anyone wants to. Oh no, thank you for all of the questions. They really help everyone to be more informed about the program.
Yeah, we put these recordings up and we put the FAQ up for everyone. We've been making an extensive one, so you guys are helping us with this as we, you know, this has been really beneficial for us doing this for the first time online. There it is.
Thank you, Glenn.
All right.
When should people apply?
Yeah, Zane.
People should apply right now. Just get on it. Just like the moment you end this conversation, just open up that application and just do it, right? Before the November 30th, before tonight. Just get on with it. Just do it. Get it out of the way. No worries, no stress. Just go for it.
And then thank you for waiting patiently for us to contact you about the interview or the status of your application.
Yeah, that too.
All right. And that's the best way we always end it, with Zane saying that. So with that, we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing your applications.
Yes.
Yep. Have a great rest of your day. And we will wave until everyone leaves. So.
Yep. All right, have a good one.
Thanks. See you, Alejandro.
I don't know how to wave differently.
just go straight. Just keep going.
You'd think we'd perfect it over the course of these info sessions. See ya.